Hello and welcome to A Scot on Scotch, the YouTube channel that celebrates and discusses all things Scotch whisky. My name's Neil Murphy. I am a writer, a blogger, and most importantly, a lover of Scotch whisky. And I like to share my passion for the subject with you guys via this channel. Um, Today I'm going to be talking about a few things that have been happening and a couple of things I've got coming up, and then I'm going to end on a couple of wee dram recommendations. This is something a few people have asked for. The only reason I haven't been doing reviews as such is just because I already write reviews over in my blog, and I think there's so many people doing reviews on YouTube already that maybe it's quite nice just to talk about whiskey without feeling like you have to review a particular dram at the same time. Um, but I don't mind from time to time throwing in a couple of wee recommendations, and that's what I'm going to do at the end of the video today. So stick about for the end, and hopefully there'll be something interesting there for you. Um, so what's been happening? Well, big news from Islay yesterday. Ardnahoe has announced that their first single malt will be released on the 10th of May. That's pretty exciting. We're going to get a new Islay single malt for the first time since Kilchoman debuted, I suppose, um, which is quite mad when you think about it. With all the talk of new distilleries coming along, we haven't had a new Islay in quite some time. Yeah, that's funny when you put it that way. But I've been quite invested in the whole Ardnahoe thing. I feel like I've been involved from the start. I've had that connection that you sometimes get. Some distilleries speak to you and some don't. Ardnahoe was one that sort of caught my attention quite early. I was in Islay in 2017, and Hunter Lane, or the company that owned the distillery, they had put a wee Ardnahoe shop in Islay House Square. And we went along and visited. You could see blueprints of the distillery and stuff, and shop and taste Hunter Lane drams. Um, and there was a lovely woman working there called Bryony, and she offered if I would like to come up and see the site. Which, I mean, it was literally a building site at the time. It was a concrete foundation, but you could stand in the concrete foundation and look across the sound to the Paps of Jura. I mean, I've got a photograph of myself standing on the very spot where the wash still now stands. Um, so that's really quite something to be able to stand in the foundations of a new distillery. It's quite special, I think. It was quite a treat to be able to do that. But that means I've been there, I've been in it, I've been in this story. I'm all in, I'm involved now. So it's been quite a long wait, as I say, 2017 that was, now 2024, and no whiskey yet. So finally in May we're getting the single malts coming out. Not much information yet about what it's actually going to entail. No, I mean, it'll be peated, no doubt. It's an Islay malt. It's going to be peated. I would presume mostly bourbon barrels, maybe a wee bit of sherry or something to go along with it. Who knows? Um, I have tasted some Ardnahoe and have not been disappointed in it. So I've got high hopes that the bottle will be good, that it'll be good quality liquid at least. Um, the best compliment I can give the stuff we tried back in October there. I was doing a tasting lineup at Ardnahoe, and they served us up. I think it was a Bowmore and a Talisker, both of which can't remember the ages, but they were over 20 years old. More than 20-year-old Bowmore, more than 20-year-old Talisker, and a dram of Ardnahoe. That Ardnahoe didn't seem out of place. I think that's the best compliment I can give it. You're talking 5-year-old whiskey, comparing pretty well to 20-plus-year-old whiskey from really well established, really famous, really, really renowned distilleries. So if the bottle's anything like that, we'll be in for a treat. Obviously, the only concern is price. There's obviously been no mention yet about price. I only hope that they don't take the piss with it I hope it's out at a half decent price that people can get on board with. I know it's a first release. I know they'll go down the collectible route. Oh, people can collect it. It's a one-off, blah blah. But you would hope, like coming from an independent bottler like Hunter Lane, you would hope they would appreciate the significance of people actually buying and drinking the whiskey. It's not an ornament. It's not something to sit on a shelf to collect dust. You want people opening it and drinking it, and hopefully it'll be priced accordingly. Um, hopefully. Maybe I'll be wrong, but you never know. Yeah, so Ardnahoe, looking forward to that. What else has been happening? Well, last week I was through in enemy territory. Obviously, I'm Glaswegian myself, but I had to travel through to Edinburgh. So you're always kind of one eye over your shoulder looking for who's behind you, in case any of the natives find out that you're in town. um, but yeah, I was through for Holyrood Distillery for the release of their new single malt Edinburgh, which is itself a kind of slang nickname for Edinburgh. Um, it's such an interesting wee distillery, Holyrood. They're doing things in a sort of weird and wonderful way. Like even the pot stills are bizarre in that they are really tall, but like Glenmorangie have tall necks, but their stills still have a slight sort of incline. Like they still have that swan neck thing that's so recognisable as a pot still. The Holyrood ones are like a pot with a straight pipe coming out the top and going on for miles, it seems. It's a really tall neck and a really tall straight neck at that. Um, which is interesting, and then they're doing a lot of playing about with different yeast strains and things like that, different malts, chocolate malts and things. So the potential for creativity there is massive. What they're doing a thing though where they say at the minute there's no plans to have a core release out. There will be no flagship Holyrood single malt. It will just be single casks, small batches, each one different from the one before, different yeasts, different malts, different casks, all that stuff, different combinations. And I'm not sure about the wisdom of that long term, but it's cool to have that creativity, that experimentation. I do wonder though, for a distillery based in the centre of Edinburgh, there's got to be a tourist footfall there. And don't the tourists just want a £50 bottle that they can pick up and take as a wee keepsake or something? I don't know. I mean, maybe that's not the market they're looking for, and that's fair enough. But you're in Edinburgh, so it feels like that would be silly to miss out on that. And I suppose for any brand, really, people kind of need to know what you stand for. People need to know what the house style is. I mean, is your house style just we do everything here? I don't know. So we'll see. I mean, I suppose when you've got those pot stills and the vapours are going to have to work so hard to get up those pipes and over the neck, then there's going to be a certain style to it. And I've seen that with our two releases so far. So the first one, Arrival, I thought was all right. A wee bit young, maybe, very crisp, very clean, light, and refreshing. Not really my style, but I could see I could see the benefit of it. Let's say. Um, the new one is a peated version, but I believe it was only a portion of the malt that was peated. The rest of the sort of smokiness in the dram came from quarter casks that were sourced from an Islay distillery, which sort of narrows it down a wee bit because there's one Islay distillery in particular that's very well known for using quarter casks. It's sort of down around about here somewhere. Um, and yeah, it's so they've used some peated malt and some peated quarter casks, and yeah, created this peaty whiskey. It's not like a smoke bomb. I'm a bit of a peat head, I love my smoky whiskies, so I'm used to big, huge, powerful smoke. This is not that. It's like a whisper of smoke, and especially coming with that clean, light spirit in those big tall stills. But it was interesting actually, and one of the most interesting things about it, they've bottled at 43, 43.8, something like that, but it's unchill filtered. So it's quite unusual to see a dram that's bottled under 46%, but unchill filtered. So it will be cloudy. There's a good chance it will be cloudy in your glass. But that, I mean, to me, that shouldn't matter, right? But again, if you were selling that bottle to the tourist market in Edinburgh, people might be going, "What is this?" You know? Um, but, we live in the age of the hazy IPA and all that. People love hazy drinks, so I don't see how it should matter. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was a nice dram. Again, maybe still a wee touch of youth about it that could do with smoothing out over the next couple of years, but it was all right. Quite enjoyable dram. Priced around £65. As I said, would a tourist coming in want to spend £65 on a bottle? Don't you want something that's just a bit more affordable to have out there that's a permanent expression? But who knows, maybe these things will change as they go on. Maybe the idea of doing nothing but small batch or nothing but limited edition sounds great in theory, but after a few years that might be elbowed. Um, but I appreciate the creativity. I wouldn't want every distillery to do that. I wouldn't want the traditional ones to just throw out the practices they've been doing for 200 years and suddenly start taking on all the yeasts and all the malts and doing all these different things. But I think it's good that some people do it. It's good that some people push the boundaries and see what can be done, whilst obviously still staying within those barriers that are the Scotch whisky regulations. Interesting stuff anyway, interesting stuff. Wish them all the best. And if you haven't been, it's very well worth going to see the distillery. It's laid out beautifully, handy, right in the centre of Edinburgh. And actually just outside there's a whisky bar called Tipsy Midgie, which is well worth popping into as well. A lovely guy that runs that in there. And you can do the tour at Holyrood, pop into the bar, and if you're heading back my way, it's only a 15-minute, 20-minute walk or so to the Waverley train station. Although when I was there, I got to Waverley and saw all the trains to Glasgow were cancelled, which was a bit of a nightmare. I thought I might have to spend the night roughing it in the streets of Edinburgh. But no, fortunately the trains came back on after about 20 minutes or so. I did have to get the long train back, though. It's usually only 45 minutes an hour, and it took me about an hour and 45 minutes to get home, maybe. But hey, it was worth it. There was drams at the other end, so it was worth the journey. But anyway, okay, so in home territory, we've got a new addition to the Glasgow bar scene, sort of. The Piper Whiskey Bar has always been, it's been there for a good few years now, and it's a pub I go to quite a lot. But I go for the whiskey tastings. Sometimes pop in for a bite to eat in the afternoon. But the problem the Piper's always had is it is a very lively, busy pub. And I'm friends with the owner, Gillian, so I know she wouldn't mind me saying this. Sometimes a really busy pub doesn't make a great whiskey bar, if that makes any sense, right? It's not even so much that it's busy, but the Piper always has a lot of live music on. And when there's live music on, it's not very easy to have a conversation with the bar staff about the drams on the shelves. So you almost feel like the crowd and the live music, it's not conducive to sitting down with a whiskey. But what Gillian's very smartly done is she's taken her function room up the stairs, which was only kind of used sporadically for different things, and she's turned it into the new gleaming Piper Whiskey Lounge, which is absolutely stunning. And they've done such a good job of it. It's cosy, it's comfortable, it's got beautiful views out over George Square, which is right in the centre of Glasgow. So you don't have to travel for it. It's also handy for the Pot Still and the Bon Accord, which are the other sort of two big whiskey bars in the city centre. She's done, her and her team have done such a fantastic job with it, and it's going to be a great place to go and sit and enjoy a dram. It's going to be opened, I believe, Thursdays through to Sundays just now, up until 10 o'clock at night, like 2 in the afternoon till 10 o'clock at night, those 4 days of the week. Maybe it'll open more as time goes on if it's successful. But yeah, it's going to be a great addition to Glasgow, I think, and somewhere else to explore, somewhere to sit and enjoy a lovely dram. Definitely check out if you're in this city. Um, yeah, so I mean they do also do sort of monthly whiskey tastings and stuff, and with the lounge being there, maybe there might be more frequent tastings in there. So if you're in Glasgow, check it out, have a wee look, see what they're doing. There might be a wee event you could go to or something. But yeah, it's beautiful. It's going to be a great place to sit and enjoy a dram, you know. Yeah, so in terms of what I've got coming up next, I'm hosting a wee tasting on Friday, which is online. That's for members of the Glasgow Whisky Group Facebook community. Um, it's a wee sort of selection of drams I've put together. It's maybe like things that have been sent to me to review on the blog, or things I've picked up at auction. Just interesting bottles, you know. I don't usually start out with a concept. I usually just see what interesting whiskies I can get a hold of, and then build the tasting from there, you know. And this time we're starting out with a wee mini exploration of Loch Lomond. We've got three to get through. We've got an old Loch Lomond single malt, then we've got a new Loch Lomond Classic, which is their very entry level one, and then we've got the Loch Lomond 12-year-old, which is at 46%. So I'm really looking forward to this, because I think it would be safe to say that Loch Lomond didn't have the best of reputations in the old days, and having tasted the old one, I'd say I can see why. But it's more complicated than that. It's more interesting than that. There's something about that old dram that I don't think we see much in new drams. So it's going to be really interesting to taste the old one at 40% against a new one at 40%, and then introduce a new one at 46%. We're going to see this sort of gradual progression of how Loch Lomond has changed, and what that extra strength and the extra age does for it, you know. Going to be really interesting. And then there's four other drams after that as well, including a Lafroig, an organic single malt from a mystery distillery, a Scallywag limited edition, and a single cask Glenturret from Dram. So it's a cracking lineup. I'm really looking forward to it. People from all over the UK joining this one. It's supposed to be the Glasgow group, but you end up with people all over joining, which is brilliant, you know. It's the joy of the internet, that we can all sit down and have a conversation with people all over Britain, or all over the world even. Aye, so looking forward to that. That's Friday, and then on Sunday it's off to Islay. I can't wait. Heading off to Islay for the Islay Whisky Academy Residential Diploma, 2024 Spring Edition. And yeah, it's going to be brilliant. We've got some amazing stuff lined up. I think on the Thursday night we're doing a bonfire down on the beach, which I think is going to be amazing. I think it's going to be amazing. We're doing a wee mini tasting of four drams while we're round the bonfire, and yeah, that's going to be absolutely delightful. You know, the crackling of the fire, the sound of the waves, peated drams in your glass, company. Life doesn't get much better than that, you know. We've also got a trip planned. We're doing distilleries every day, obviously, but I think the one that most people are excited about, we've got a trip planned to Port Ellen, which I must admit I'm excited about, because I've never been to Port Ellen before, obviously, right? Um, but it's always been there, you know. That it's, when you get into whiskey, especially when you get into Islay whiskey, the story of Port Ellen sort of looms over it all, like this long lost giant kind of thing. Which isn't necessarily the truth, by the way. It's, you know, a lot of people will tell you there might have been a reason why Port Ellen was the one that was closed down, you know. It maybe wasn't the most popular, it wasn't the better of the three sort of DCL, Diageo, Islay distilleries. You get Coolila, Lagavulin and Port Ellen. Port Ellen was the one that was chosen to close down. But it's still built up this sort of mystique over the years. And of course, there was no distillery there to visit. It was the maltings for a long time. There's bits of the original distillery left, but now the new one's there, and it's opening to the public, and we're going to see it, and we're going to do a tour, and who knows, maybe even con a wee bit of new make off them. That would be lovely. See what's happening. Yeah, I am really excited about it. I mean, I spoke in the last video, I think, about you know, when it comes time to release Port Ellen as a single malt, will Diageo put it out at a sensible price, or will they want to keep Port Ellen as the big premium Islay brand? I think we all know the answer to that question. It's not going to come out at a reasonable price, I would doubt. But who knows? We can hope. We can hope. And yeah, so really excited to get in and see that. And loads of other cool things. We'll be doing Bunnahabhain, we'll be doing Lafroig, we'll be doing Ardnahoe, um, and Kilhoman, I believe. As well as loads of other lectures and tastings and all sorts. It's always a great week. It's always a great week. Um, just hoping we get a wee spot of nice weather, especially for the beach bonfire. If we don't get good weather for the beach bonfire, that's going to be a bit of an issue, I think. But we'll plough on. We'll find a way to make it work. Um, aye, and to be quite honest, there's a lot you feel you can achieve when you've got a dram of Islay malt in your glass, you know. Um, Yeah, so that's just about it. What I'm going to do is wrap up now with a couple of recommendations, as I said earlier. Now, I'm not going to, this isn't a review, right? Because I already review stuff on my blog, and there's loads of other people doing reviews on YouTube. I thought I would use this platform just to chat about whiskey, really. But people have asked about recommendations and things, and I don't see any harm in from time to time just sticking a bottle or two up and saying this is worth looking out for. Um, so let's do that. The first one is a single malt which I picked up when I was visiting Aberfeldy Distillery last year, last Easter. So this is it's almost a year old now to the day that I got this. Although it's almost gone. There's one dram left in the bottle. Um, it's not an Aberfeldy though, right? I quite like Aberfeldy, but it tends to be bottled at lower strength, and if you want something a bit different, you have to pay for it. I think they had a distillery exclusive there, but the price was a wee bit harsh for me, and I opted not to go along with that. Um, but obviously Aberfeldy's owned by Dewars or Bacardi. It's but as part of the Dewars stable, which includes Craigellachie, Macduff, Altmore, Aberfeldy, of course, and Royal Bracla, which is a distillery you don't necessarily hear people talking about all that much. But this 12-year-old sherry cask finish, Oloroso, Bracla, has been a cracker of a dram. I have really, really enjoyed this. It's bottled at 46%, which, to be honest, is what sort of drew me to it to begin with. And it's just a lovely, lovely dram. I mean, it is a sherry finish. It's no full-time maturation, but it's close to being a sherry bomb. I would say that the influence of the fortified wine is really quite intense. Maybe if you put a bit of water in it, you sort of get past the finish a wee bit, find some of the kind of malty character in there, malty spirit character rather. Um, but it's a big sherry dram, you know. You get all those dried fruits flavours, all that sort of the spiciness, the dried fruits, a wee bit of oak chocolatiness, that kind of thing. It's just lovely. And you know, for people who like things like Glendronach and Macallan, maybe Aberlour, that kind of thing, this is a nice wee alternative, I think. And if I remember right, it was about £50, maybe £55. So it's not going to break the bank. It's got a good age statement in 12 years. It's 46%. Cracking dram. Cracking wee dram. And something I don't see people talking about very often. So there we have it. The Royal Bracla 12-year-old sherry cask finish. Stephanie McLeod's signature on there, of course. So the next one, right, the other recommendation I'm going to do, nearly said review there, it's no review, it's no review. Um, I'm not even really reviewing this. I'm reviewing, stop it. I'm not even really recommending the dram. I'm recommending the bottle or the label, really. This is Pintail, which is a sort of subsection of the Whisky Cellar Independent Bottler, which is based in Edinburgh. Um, Pintail was originally a blended Scotch brand made by Matthew Gloag and Sons, who is the company behind that other blended Scotch with the bird on the label, right? The people that created Famous Grouse. Well, Pintail was one of their other brands, but for whatever reason, it didn't stand the test of time. It sort of faded away. But Keith Bonington of the Whisky Cellar decided to bring it back. But he hasn't done a blended Scotch with it. Keith is an independent bottler himself, and he's used this Pintail brand to put out all kinds of interesting drinks. He's put out port and rum, various other things which escape me, which have slipped my memory at this point, but also a selection of Scotch whiskies which have been finished in unusual and rare wine casks. So this one was a Glenlossie. It was 14 years old, and it was finished in a Piccoli wine cask, which, if I remember right, was a sort of sweet dessert wine from the north of Italy. But it worked absolutely brilliantly in this case. Quite a prominent finish, you know, like the Brackla before it. If you like your whiskies with lots of spirit character coming through, maybe not for you, because this is quite cask-led, I would say. But for me, this Glenlossie was a real showstopper. I tasted this at a festival in August last year, I believe, and it was the best thing I had that day, the most unusual thing, the most different thing, and it literally stopped me in my tracks, and I said, I'm buying that, you know. And it's no often. Sometimes the last few times I've been to whiskey festivals, I always have a wonderful time. I always taste some great whiskies, but sometimes you come out and go, nothing really stood out, to be honest. Not because they were bad, but because consistent quality is pretty consistent across the board these days. And sometimes it can be quite difficult for something to sort of poke its head above the rest and say, pick me, you know what I mean? But this did. And I've tasted a few more from the series since then, and they're all high quality, different whiskies, unlike things I've tasted before, which in an independent bottler market, which can be a little bit stale sometimes. That's a bit harsh, but you know, you see a lot of the same names, the same distilleries popping up again and again. All the independent bottlers are sort of battling over the same stock, basically. So you know, somebody that's finding a way to put stuff out there with a wee different spin on it is worth your attention, I would say. Also, beautiful looking bottle. I just love the way the bottle looks. Beautiful, just beautiful looking bottle. I love the white label on the black glass and the wax seal on top. It just looks gorgeous. It just looks absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, that's my recommendations for you. I'll do more of this in future, no doubt. And when I'm in Islay next week, I will undoubtedly take a load of videos, a load of pictures, all sorts. They'll be all over social media. So hit me up on Instagram or Facebook or Threads or TikTok if you would like to stay in touch. Any comments, any suggestions, anything, as always, fire away. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Hit the wee bell and it'll give you a notification when I post something new. And thanks for watching. I think that's probably enough waffling for now. I will see you again soon, I hope. Slange!